Okay, we'll start with the third critical type of contract beyond the price based contract and the cost reimbursement type of contract, which is the build, operate and transfer contract. Okay, so in this particular case, what happens is an authority or a vendor or a supplier is given absolute right, but within a particular principle, to build a structure. It can be any structure, but he has to invest the money. Okay, so you have heard about this public private partnership kind of business? Anyone who has heard of this?
Yes, sir.
In which sector have you heard this?
Sir, in housing sector, sir.
In housing sector. So can you tell the role of the public and the private in case of housing sector?
So like both the parties uh, try tries to complete the same project. Like
No, one is a public organization, which is particularly the government organization, and
yes,
another is a private, who are basically the builders, the contractors, the promoters, and all. So both of them do a partnership to build a housing project. But why do they do the partnership?
Like certain services are provided like by private organizations, and like certain things are being done by taken care by government. Like
Like, can you give one example of those certain and certain?
they're like I don't know if like water and all
Okay,
electricity,
if you
water.
don't know, then I will come up with.
Yes.
Anybody has any idea? Then I
So
can
land,
modify
Sir,
that.
in
land
bank
issues,
Yes,
and
yes,
all.
Monica is saying something correct, I guess.
uh, land issues, and with the documentation regarding that.
No, you were on the track. You started on the track. Government is the
No,
holder
no,
of land, but
uh,
government doesn't have the money to build. So and private organizations, these builders, this promoter, they have the money to build, to invest. They have material, but they don't have land. So government gives a land to them and say, okay, you build this particular housing for 20% EWS, 40% MIG, 40% EWS and LIG, 40% of MIGs, and 20% of HIG or economically affluent class. And then, so they are given to make for the 20% plus 40% of HIG and MIG, provided they follow the rules of also giving housing for 40% say LIG. Okay, now they will make it, they will build it, they will hand it over. So government's need was, I am giving you land so that at least 40% of your site is occupied by the people for whom I should have made the house. So there is a cross subsidy. So instead of 100 rupees, they pay 10 rupees, and instead of 100 rupees, the rich people pay 10,000 rupees. So that's the cross subsidy, because they are 20% and these are 40%. So what happens is, for 10 years or 20 years, government also give a lease that you start building, you invest the money, and once things are built, you started handing over the money. You decide the rent within which should be a fair rent. Within a particular limit, it should be a fair rent. Or if you are selling the apartments, you sell it at a particular price, keeping a profit for you, because you have already invested the money, and you cannot be happy with only recovering the principal. You also have to earn some interest, you have to earn some profit to pay the interest. Beyond that, certain money has to be paid back to the government, because government has given you land, so it is a rental for that land. Or it might be another way around, that government gives the land, this organization, they build it, build the house, they operate the house. That means for the lease period for which they have taken lease of the land, they operate it, earn from that, and then transfer the whole properties including the land back to the government. Now it is up to the government to decide what to do with those housings. Okay, another example. Government has land to make roads, but they cannot build roads like the national highway. So they instruct workers like this ACOM, like this L&T, like other similar other organizations, to build the road for with a standard of national highway. So they build it, they operate it. That means they take the tolls directly from the vendor. So the private organization take the tolls from the vendors or from the passers-by. With that money, they do lot of things. First of all, they compensate for the money that they have invested. Secondly, they use the money to maintain the road for this period of lease. And thirdly, for the profit they want to make, which they will invest maybe in their next project. So after the operation is over, they transfer the whole thing. That means this national highway, they transfer it back to the government. Okay, so after say 10 or 20 years, again the government goes for somebody else to, now they don't have to build, they just have to operate and procure the profit. So it might happen now that government employs their own person in the new available toll plazas to collect the money, to maintain the road and to house the profit. Okay, so these are some kind of critically BOT works for which a contract has to be made. Now build, okay, is the examples clear? Abhishek, Monica, Rajdeep and others, definitely others.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So build, operate, transfer contract is awarded by statutory bodies like CPWD or state government or corporations. See, this is not corporations, this is corporations. For mega projects like network of roads, flyovers, and definitely we have put a etc. because housings comes up in this particular contracts. Okay. Same thing is like say the Airport Authority of India gives lease to a particular private company to run flight in their airport, and after its time is over, they have to either pay back constantly, or if they are not paying right now, after the lease period is over, they have to hand over all their property of usage, the infrastructure, the office and everything back to Airport Authority of India. So for this kind of activities, whatever contract happens is a build, operate and transfer contract. Okay. Okay, just for information, it has started raining torrentially, so at any point of time there may be a power off at my end. So let me continue quickly that the agency which bids successfully for such project have to provide designs, specifications, arrange for finances and operate and maintain the projects as per agreed terms. So this is the party, this is the particularly the so in BOT, it doesn't always have to be a private and public. It can be any two organization or maybe one organization. I want to make a project. I have a project proposal in my mind. I talk with government and say that I will build it, I will operate it for a while and then I will transfer it back after my principal is done. But at least give me the scope to do this experiment. So the government gives me the norms or clearance certificate to build that particular experimental structure. So all of these are build, operate and transfer contract. So a contract where the party, the second party has to provide the design. So they come with their design. For example, the toll plazas. How will the toll plazas design be is decided by the company who is setting up the toll plazas initially. Okay. They will only have to arrange for the finances, initial finances to operate, to build and to operate and maintain the project, but they are not free to do anything because there is some agreement in the contract in terms by charging the user and beneficiaries toll or some other forms of earnings for a stipulated period. So that is the operation section. Building is done by their own design specification and arranging finances. Then they operate and maintain the projects by collecting tolls from the different beneficiaries for a particular period of time and then transfer. That means hand over the project to the promoting agency free of cost at the end of the contract period. Okay, so that's all about BOT contract. Okay, now let's try to find out each and every kinds of price oriented or price based contract and try to find out what are the advantages of one kind of price based contract over the other type, so that it is easier for you to choose. Like you are sure that you will get the money and then you are going to build. So the contract that is going to be signed is a price based contract. But which of the following price based contract is beneficial for both the parties, that also has to be seen. So first let's take the lump sum contract. Okay. This lump sum contract is also known as a drawing and specification contract. That means the drawing is given. With respect to the drawing, details, estimation and specification has been given. So if you know from 0 to 100% what all thing has to be done, then you can directly, you know the estimate of money, so the costing is also done. So you can give the total sum of money at one go and be happy with that. So lump sum money is also known as a drawing and specification contract. Oh, sorry. Here the contractor agrees to perform a stipulated job of work in exchange for a fixed sum of money. So the amount of money is fixed beforehand. It is not changed in any later stages, or it is not flexible with the change of work, or as the works progresses, that amount of money is not changed. To complete, next point is to complete it in all respects within a specified time and a fixed amount. So actually a long sentence I have divided into multiple points. So at a fixed sum of money within a specific time, all the work has to be completed. Next is payment may be staged at intervals of time of the completion of different stages. So here what is saying is the total project cost and the payment that you will do before the work start is decided. Okay, in the contract only the type of payment is decided. So in the contract, while signing the agreement between the two party, it is decided that this is going to be a lump sum contract. That means I will pay and you will utilize that money to do the work. But this does not ensure that you will pay the total money on day 0. It can be like I pay you 10%, you do 8% of the work or 10% of the work, and by that time I again pay another 20%, and you immediately you continue working on the next part. So before the completion of the second part, again I do a payment. So I am always paying you before, but you are doing the job after receiving the payment. But the total money that you are going to pay, summation of all these intermediate stage payments is fixed. The summation is fixed. Hence the term lump sum. Okay, is it clear? Is the basic
Yes, sir.
concept clear?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So next is deposit of 10% security money is taken by the department. That means what you can do is once you are promising to pay, you can pay him 10% less, or you can charge 10% of the total money from the contractor. So you are planning to make a house by a contractor and you have planned that you are going to pay him 55 lakh rupees to make this house. So what you do is out of this 55 lakh, how much is 10%? 5.5 lakh. So you ask him to initially pay you 5.5 lakh while signing the contract, not during the tender, not during the letter of intent. But once he agrees to sign the contract, he pays you 5.5 lakh of money, and then you start paying him. Now you can pay him the rest. How much? 55 lakh minus 5.5 lakh, whatever it is. That amount you can pay at one go, or you can stage those at individual small stages, but the decision has to be taken beforehand. And then this 10% of security money can be adjusted in the last payment if it is a stage wise payment. So what you do is you paid back that security money in the last stage, or you convert this security money as a damage control measure even after the conversion. So from day 0 to day n, that means the last date of building construction, you have paid him the total money, say 100% money, but initially you have taken up 10% from him. So this 10% money on the nth day, on the day in which the work is completed, you have paid him 100%, but since he has already given you 10% beforehand, so overall you have actually paid him 90%. So what you say is this security money on the last date is getting converted. The money is fixed. The name is only getting changed to something else. I will discuss it later. I don't want to talk about it right now because that will be a different line of discussion though. But that money will be utilized to address any defect that happens after the completion till 1 year after the completion. Okay, so basically no transaction is happening, only an amount of money is given a different name. Okay, next, the contractor is responsible to prepare the bill of quantity. So you have just given the drawing and the specification that I need my house and this is the quality of material and the finishes that I expect. Now to do that, how much quantity of those material are required? I mean the estimation has to be done by the contractor. So the estimation will be done by the contractor. Now if there is a lacuna, that means whatever the contractor estimated he is not able to give that service, then it is his onus. He has been paid over that. He has to somehow manage those and do the same job. But still an architect has to monitor whether things are okay or not, because client generally doesn't understand what a BOQ is or bill of quantity is or what is meant by specification and drawing. Okay. Now see, I have given the money. I am an employer, I am a client, and I have given the total money in a lump sum format to the contractor. Now the contractor calculates the quantity and starts executing the work. So it might happen that for this kind of products, the value of the product generally with time never decreases. It may remain the same, it may increase. So what happens is the employer or the client who pays is always at a lower financial risk. Okay. But a contractor is at a higher risk. For example, say once the contractor gets the total money on day 0, he will try to procure as much material as possible, particularly those materials whose price he is sure that will increase if he buys it late. So he'll procure all those material and keep it in a stock. Now he has two risks. One, if it is steel, just a minute. If it is steel, reinforcements and all, it will start rusting. If it is cement, it will start having some sort of chemical reaction with the moisture content. If it is sand, okay, localizers will start taking it from you. If it is brick and regularly you are drenching it, it will be used for some rough works, say scaffoldings with the bricks, supporting, shoring with support of bricks. So the quality of bricks, quantity of bricks, everything will deteriorate. But if he doesn't buy things initially, then after a few days the price might increase, which he cannot negotiate now because it is a lump sum contract. So the contractor is at a higher risk in this kind of lump sum contract. So from this discussion it is clear that lump sum contract has certain advantages. Okay. So before the project actually starts getting executed, the owner knows the total price or the total cost of the project. So he can be mentally prepared to take any loan or investment or withdraw money accordingly in individual stages. Okay. So
Sir,
it is yes, please.
sir, is it possible that contractor will take the account of inflation so that he will not be at risk of the price getting?
Then it is not a lump sum contract. For that kind of thing, if those clauses are there in the contract document, then it is a different kind of contract. Now, while estimation only, during estimation only, you keep into account this factor of inflation in terms of contingency.
Yes, sir.
Now you are a client, I have quoted a price and I have taken 5% contingency and another person hasn't taken that. Whom will you award the project, or who will get the contract? Whose tender will become low price?
Sir, who doesn't give the like?
Doesn't ask for contingency, who is giving the minimum price? So
Yes, sir.
always the bidder or the contractor is at a risk. Even initial risk is, if I have to think of inflation right now, then I will not even get the contract.
Yes, sir. I
So
understood.
first I have to get the contract and then go for this inflation. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. The next point is the contractor. Now the contractor advantages for the contractor. So the contractor has more incentive to reduce his cost to increase the profit. So the total sum of money is fixed. The less the contractor can utilize out of the total cost, the more will be his profit. As simple as that. So if he gets the money beforehand, there is a higher chance that the contractor will try to increase his profit. So that is the only advantage from the contractor's point. So he will always try to increase his profit. While doing that, there are cases where contractor compromises the quality and the quantity. So there the site supervisor, who is a representative of the architect, or a person commonly known as, listen carefully, a person commonly known as clerk of work. Okay. He is a person employed by the client, approved by the contractor to give day-to-day report of supervision of the project. Okay. So that these two persons inform the respective people about the situation, that there has been a compromise. So we pressurize the contractor, but then always every day, if you don't observe, contractor will try to increase his profit by reducing the cost. Okay. Now cost reduction can happen in multiple ways. For example, say I can bring sand, cement, and building construction water, including coarse aggregate, in small tempo regularly, and make small batches of RCC and then mix it up. Or else, whenever I require, if it is a huge project, whenever the slab will be casted, I will just inform the quality, quantity, like M25 concrete, 20 tons to a particular organization. They have the equipments to reduce the cost. They don't need people to carry the head load of those and putting in the mixer batching machine. So they will mix it at one place and dump it at one point. So if you have the money beforehand, that means it is a lump sum contract or a price based contract, then only you can think of reducing the cost without compromising the quality. Okay, I think it is clear. Next is the contractor hopes to complete the job as quickly as possible to minimize the overhead. Okay, so a project has to be built and it is spanning over a particular time frame. So for those time, the contractor is hiring laborers, paying the laborer for those many number of working days, as well as the cost of the material that he has to procure. So you should be absolutely sure that the cost of the material doesn't changes that much over the span of the construction. Doesn't changes that much. It might change, but it does not changes to a large extent. But what changes is the overhead cost. So you have to house those many number of workers in a temporary shelter for long periods till the work is done. So that increases an overhead. So the drinking water or the usable water, the temporary shelter, electricity facility for those workers in near your site, all has to be provided by the contractor. So what the contractor will always want is to minimize the overheads. So to minimize the overhead, he will try to complete the project as quickly as possible, which will also lead to maximization of the profit. So if he can complete one project earlier, he can get the next project a bit more earlier. So in that way, it also works as an incentive for contractor. So in lump sum contract, though the contractor is at a risk of procuring materials slowly, but it this kind of contract brings extra incentive for the contractor, which is profitable for them also. Coming to the next slide. Now, though we have not studied what all are the different types of like what are the different other types of contract, but with this particular idea that what are the advantages of lump sum contract, we can come to some conclusion of sorry, we can come to one conclusion that when should we go for a lump sum contract. So this is something like a distinguish between the cases when one should go for a lump sum contract versus when one should not go for lump sum contract. Like, but avoiding lump sum contract, which kind of contract they have to sign is not being spoken here. What is happening here? Can anyone see my screen? When to sign a lump sum contract is the heading of this slide.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
But
Yes,
I am
sir.
seeing something of zoom on this.
No, sir, it's fine for us.
Okay. So when to sign a lump sum contract? Okay. So we generally go for signing a lump sum contract when the level of risk is low. So the overall risk is low, as well as you are aware that what is the quantum or what at which stages you are going to face those risks. That means the risk is quantifiable. Okay. I will give you an interesting example after I complete this type of contract. That when level of risk is low and quantifiable, that means you know that there is minimum chance of risk with the inflation or deflation of the price, as well as even though there is a risk, at which point there is a risk, and it has already been added, if not in contingency format but in any other prime principal format within the cost only, then we can think of going for a lump sum contract. The next is when the client does not wish to be involved in the management of the project. That means it happens that I will pay and I will enjoy, and I will not poke my nose into the overall management of this project. So there are definitely some people who likes this kind of work. Okay. So for them this is beneficial. Next is when limited variation is needed. That means during the project there is minimum chance of the design or the procedure or the management to vary. For example, you are building a balcony in the ground floor and then you realize that instead of a balcony with a hanging slab and all, if you make it a veranda, it will be more beneficial. So those changes cannot be done during the course of work. But if you know that there is minimum chances of variation, there is minimum variation during the course of the execution of the project, then only you can go for lump sum contract. In case of lump sum contract, generally the conditions cannot be changed once the contract is signed. The fourth one is when estimate can be accurately and completely described. So if you are sure that during the bidding, that means during the tender procedure, you have given an estimated cost in the tender invitation notice, only you have given an estimated cost, and that is almost very close to the detail estimate, which means that you have done an accurate and complete estimation during bidding only, during the tendering process itself. A small residential building construction or small projects actually, where there is not too much variation in the estimate of the rough estimate which you do during bidding to the actual project cost, there we can go for a lump sum contract. Okay. So now if these are the reasons for signing a lump sum contract, anything other than this are definitely disadvantageous for signing a lump sum contract. So the disadvantages of a lump sum contracts are, as the example I said, I was looking for a balcony in the ground floor, not in the upper floor. But then I realized that instead of making it a hanging cantilever balcony, if I make, which will be of a slab or a RCC slab with beams in the periphery, and I'm not sure how much extra load I can put on that slab, what I plan is, okay, let's convert it into a veranda. So it will have a shallow foundation with earth filling and flooring material, no slab, nothing in the ground floor. But this design change or specification change is not allowed. So if you have to do that, don't go for lump sum contract. So the disadvantage says changes in drawing and specification can be very expensive and invite travel. So if you want to do those changes in the specification or changes in the design or in the drawing, it will come at a very expensive rate. There you cannot say ki this was the, like for example you are buying a plywood, you are buying a plywood of 2 feet by 4 feet. Okay, so a price of 1500 has been ascertained for that, or say 1000 rupees has been ascertained for 2 feet by 4 feet. But you suddenly realize that a contract has been signed and you need a bit more buffer space for to accommodate your workmanship in the plywood. So you ask him, okay, you do something, you give me 2.5 feet by 4.5 feet of plywood. So there is a change in the drawing. So do you expect that this half feet by half feet into the total area converted into a unitary method of say 150 rupees or 200 rupees is only the extra that you have to pay? No. Since the contract was a lump sum contract, it might lead to that extra addition of half an inch on all side will lead to double the expense. Okay, this sometimes happen. Because you needed 100 bricks to do a construction, and a change in design needs 10 more bricks to be brought to the site. Now, which vehicle will bring 10 bricks only to your site? So the transportation cost will remain the same. Your manpower cost will almost remain the same. So the price of transporting 10 brick will not be just 1/10 of the price to bring in 100 bricks. Okay. So the contract has very limited flexibility of design changes. So once the contract has signed, the terms and conditions says that there is minimum chances of changes in the design, because changes in design comes at an extensive cost. Next is the contractor carries much of the risk. The tendered price may include high risk contingency. So Rajdeep's question gets answered now, that it is disadvantageous to sign a lump sum contract if the price includes high risk contingency, because you know contractors are quoting and contractors are at a risk in case of lump sum contract. That also we have read. Okay, so I will not explain it further, I have already answered it. Next point comes is competent contractor may decide not to bid. So if a contractor is experienced enough in this kind of risks, they may be competent to do the job. For example, say you know that if you give L&T to make your 2-story apartment of 400 square meter, they will make it and they are really competent to do it. But the price quotation which L&T will quote to make a 2-story house will be much more than the price quotation by ABC Construction in your neighborhood. So it may happen that though you needed the class of L&T, L&T will not even give the bid or not even submit the tender to avoid a high risk lump sum contract. Okay, so even though you know there are good bidders, they will not be bidding. So eventually you will not get efficient, competent bidders or the contractors if you are planning to sign a lump sum contract. So is this clear what a lump sum contract is? Please don't mistake it with lump sum tender. A lump sum tender you may hear somewhere, or in your gate question also you may find this question, what is a lump sum, or which kind of they give a case and then call it a lump sum tender or not. So a tender which promises to sign a contract upon fulfilling necessary scrutinies and procedures, that means tender scrutiny whatever procedures are there, after doing that, if this contract that is going to be signed is going to be a lump sum contract, then that tender invitation type is known as a lump sum tender. But you remember that we have learned the different types of tenders where there was nothing known as lump sum tender, right? So lump sum tender is a tender where you promise or you assure that once somebody gets a contract, that contract is going to be a lump sum contract. So that's all for lump sum contract. Is it clear to everyone?
Yes,
Can all of you, I need this from all of you.
Yes.
They have to be absolutely clear.
Yes, sir.
Otherwise, you cannot distinguish this lump sum contract from the other types of contract.
Yes.
Kiran, Naveen,
Yes, sir.
where are you all?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sir.
Yeah, listening.
Okay, Naveen, I can hear you. Is it clear?
Sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So I see Naveen and who was speaking, not Kiran, somebody else was speaking. So, since we are in the second chapter, I am supposed to tell you, which till now none of you have asked, at least to me. I don't know why you have not asked to me. How I am going to evaluate on this particular subjects for your TA component. So by now I have given you an essence of which kind of subject we are going through. So can you come up with some suggestions for evaluating you for your TA component? Since you have not asked till now, at least to me, I am sure you have asked to other faculties. So I'm giving you an option to know what all you prefer.
Like creating a tender or contract for a project.
Okay. So you want to prepare a tender invitation notice for a project.
Maybe sir, like
Maybe no, that is one of the good options. Okay, I can do with that. Any other different format of evaluating you for your TA component? Who presented to you in the morning? Sharmila, right?
Yes.
You presented your design today in the morning?
It's not today, yesterday.
Yesterday.
Yesterday also. You started yesterday. So today there were a
Yes.
few more.
Yes, sir.
I heard some of you at 10 o'clock. So can you come up with some ideas that how do you want me to evaluate in a subject like this? This is a different subject altogether. I got one option. Because we are supposed to clarify it right now so that you are not in a dubious condition that suddenly one fine morning I will say chalo aaj exam le leta hu. And then immediately those who are not even on WhatsApp, they will start texting me, sir, I am in corona test, I am in this test, I have gone out, I have no internet. Okay. So Sharmila,
Sir.
don't be Sharmila. Come up with some reasonable solution. Help me out. Class test at the after some months maybe for the partial evaluation. Huh?
Yes, sir.
Class test with all different
Class
questions
test.
for different students.
Maybe.
yes,
Or-
maybe sir.
Or
Yes, sir.
MCQ or a Viva.
MCQs.
So class
please.
test is better.
See, for
Sir,
MCQ,
MCQ.
I have a
MCQ
problem
देंगे.
because I don't want to give the options. Because once I have 4 options for one question, that means it is also giving 3 other questions which the other people are sure of. So even if it is a question, it will be a short answer type questions which I will give different question papers to everyone. It may be short, like it is a precise class test for a partial assessment. So if it is a 20 marks, for 10 marks, you have to sit for individual questions, which can be a combination of small question, short question, elaborative questions or sketches and all. Because partially you have to finish it before and then the next part, which is a project management, which has to come up. I haven't started with the introduction of project management yet. So okay, I'm taking your response also, as well as I heard Rohit saying something.
Please.
Sir, or
Did
maybe
Rohit spoke?
presentations.
You can make presentations. Okay, presentations, yeah, you can make, but okay, that is also an option. So if I ask you to make tenders and all, it ultimately has to be a presentation only. You can share your reports, you can share your PDFs, you can share your scanned pages or photographed pages of the tender that you prepare. You will highlight it and explain it. And then we will do a constructive beneficial criticism. Criticism should not always be negative, that how far you have gone right, or while doing the right, have you missed something, so that if I am a contractor, I will find a loophole in your tender and try to fool you and then make profit out of that. So these are kind of constructive debate. We can do that also. Okay, so let's fix up something, at least say by third week of September, or by second or third week of September, we will plan something. By that time, you will be sure whether there will be midsem or not.
Sir, if there is a midsem, what will be the procedure?
Kindly leave that to your Dean Academics. He is an expert in making out those. If there is an online exam, then all of you have to sit for an exam. You will be given questions. You have to have good internet, a camera to show us the answer script, and then a mobile to scan it and send it to us. And you have to sit at a particular distance away from the camera so that we see you appearing for the paper. And in each and every MS Teams, there will be PIC exams, uh, assistant register examination and UG studies, and Dean Academics in every team. So during the exam, during the schedule, they can visit any teams that they are a part of and can experience what all things you are doing.
Someone of us attempted for supply exam during
That was special case for supply. We are not sure whether a mid sem will be held or not. It can be like the university exams, where in the end sem is a lump sum exam, and there the total marking is done. So you might face a question of 100 marks. It will be converted into say 80 or 70 or something, and rest will be internal. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So that I cannot assure you right now. So I am trying to, for at least this subject, I will try my best to keep you prepared for any format. Whatever they say from the institute level, you should be ready for that format. In that way, I will try to keep you prepared. Okay.
Yes,
So
sir.
okay, I have noted these two things. One is by Rajdeep. One is Rohit was saying
Sir.
something. He has been again stopped.
Sir, I was saying for MCQs.
MCQs. Okay, so I have replied to you that I cannot
Yeah,
exactly
yeah.
take the full form of the MCQ.
Sir,
Yes.
Multiple choice question.
No, I cannot give you those multiple choices for one question. Okay, if
sir,
I give you multiple choice for one question, that means the wrong incorrect answers are maybe correct answer to some other questions. So indirectly, I am helping some other students. It can happen. So while I'm asking Rohit a question, indirectly I might be helping some other students, which is not decided yet. So somebody who faces a different question has already seen this particular options as an incorrect option for the question of Rohit. That's why we are strictly instructed to avoid MCQs. We have been asked to conduct quiz without option. It can be open book, but there is no book for this subject because open book is only allowed in standards. Okay. Uh, we can go for
Sir.
quiz contest. We can go for presentations. We can go for short report or term paper submission. You know what a term paper is?
No.
A 3 to 4 page research paper. You have done a research analysis, not a data presentation. You collected your data, you analyzed those, and you came up with some research, your findings, your ethical presence, and all. And then you just present it. That the same thing that I tell that you submit a term paper on the procedures and advantage disadvantage of a lump sum contract. So you collect the information, you take examples, you analyze those to explain those advantage, you take other examples to explain the disadvantage, and then you give your own conclusion. This is known as a term paper. A condition has been given to you and you submit a small research paper on that. That can also be helpful.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, we can also divide our class into people who are offering tender and other as
No
contractors.
group works. No group work, please. I can divide the whole class into 19 different groups. That I can do.
Yes, sir, in that way, individually.
So individual people will be given individual assignments. I can do with that also. But okay, if there are 19 presentations to be handled, then it will be difficult for me. So I will preferably have reports and we will discuss the reports maybe. Because if it is a presentation, there are thousands of presentation available on internet. But if I ask you to make a report, at least you will read those presentation, collect those information, and then while you are preparing the report, my objective to teach you or you learning the necessary thing rather than copying the thing will be done. Okay.
Yes, sir.
But if I feel that I have to start distributing topics for your presentations or your report submission, which is a partial component, then I will give individual assignments to individual people. Say for the first 10 marks, let's fix up this. So which is a combination of Rajdeep's feedback and Monika's feedback also. Is it okay, Monika?
I don't know, sir.
अरे डोंट फियर योर क्लासमेट्स. इफ यू से यस, उसके बाद मैं हाँ बोलूंगा, बाकी कोई उसको ना नहीं कर पाएंगे. Is your CR laughing? He's not in the
No,
meeting
sir.
today. Okay. Okay, I will give you 2 days to think. Let's go to the next important kind of contract, which was highlighted in blue, which is a schedule contract or item rate contract. Now, be careful that this is also a price based contract. So the price or the unit price of individual items are fixed, only the quantity is multiplied. So the schedule of its execution or schedule of the purchase of the individual product, either it is manpower, labor. So when you are casting a slab, you need manpower or labor for casting slab. You don't need people to do with your furnitures and all at that point of time. So according to the schedule of constructions, whatever items are getting procured in terms of goods or services, that rate of that items is the basis of determining or signing this contract. Hence the name is either a schedule contract or an item rate contract. Now here the contractor undertakes the execution of construction on the item rate basis only. So what you do is you fix the item rate, that I need to make a house of class A brick, high quality fast hardening cement. Smita, I can hear your mic. Thank you. So here what happens is the contractor is only signing the contract where the rate of the individual product is only fixed, the quantity is not. Okay, so the payment to the contractor is made by the detailed measurement of different item of work actually done by the contractor. Now this is very common. This is very common because, can you all see my room? So you see in the bottom right corner there is a switchboard. In my camera, can you see that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
5 बजे के बाद, बारिश होने के बाद वो रहेगा वहां पे. So that is the source of a point. Okay, now you follow my room. I will take the webcam throughout. It goes in this way to the top, takes away from there. Just see, and then it again drops down behind my CPU. Whereas they could have easily taken a line from that corner on my right hand side back behind me to the left hand side here, right? Do you agree? That could have been easily
Yes,
done and
sir.
it would have saved money.
Yes, sir.
So why did they do this? This they have done because the item rate, that means the unit length price of this piping or wiring is what was only fixed. Okay, that is the only thing that was fixed. The manpower for laying out one meter of this line was fixed, or the material for unit length was fixed, not the total quantity. It was not a lump sum contract. If we would have had a lump sum contract, then probably both those switchboards would have been side by side, because the amount of money which was promised is for this whole wiring, but they will try to make a maximum profit, so they will place the board side by side and connect it. It is something like a, you have lot of public transport in many cities where you have, say, taxis. So if you are going on a prepaid basis, you have paid the money and you know the destination, then the taxi will take you through the shortest possible path. But if you are in a metered taxi or a metered auto, I saw this in Hyderabad, they will take you from your origin to the destination through the maximum possible detour routes, because per kilometer transport cost is fixed. That is the item rate contract. Okay. So at the back end, I am also telling you some advantages as well as some disadvantages which you have to come out with. So the payment to the contractor is made by detailed measurement of different works. So what happened is the contractor did the work and the engineer came and measured the total amount of work he has done. He multiplied the total amount with the unit price, and then that much amount was paid. So that is a way of increasing the total cost. So if the total cost increases, the profit of the contractor will only then increase. The third point says the amount the contractor receives depend on the number of items of work done. Definitely it doesn't depend on the unit price of the work done, but the total quantity of work that is done. So the next point says the contract agreement includes quantity, rate, and amount of various items of work. So this is a contract agreement where we give the individual expected quantity, the rate, and the different amount of various items of work. That means which all work I need to get him to do. For example, if he has drilled this particular wire or piping for electrical wiring, then he is also supposed to clamp those with some other materials, and then he is supposed to clean the floor or do painting if the painting gets distorted in those small portions. So what are the works that he has to do? What is the quantity of that work, individual work they have to do, and a rate of individual quantity of work that they have to do. These are generally mentioned in the contract agreement. Here also we expect a 10% security deposit or say penalty, because if they are not abiding by the contract agreement, you again have to sign one more contract with some other authority by short terminating the previous contract. But doing a contract, the price has not remained valid. So if you are again going for tender invitation, the price will increase. So why will you be paying more price now because of delay of somebody else? So charge that 10% security deposit, don't give it back to him, utilize it in the next tendering process and the next contract process. Okay. So where do we need, so we have read that in the lump sum contract we are making house, a small residence or small purchasing small equipment where the total cost is known to us before even the work start. But we need an item rate contract when we it is used for repair and maintenance work or under conditions of urgency. So for example, say you are casting a slab, and the slab casting was a part of the lump sum contract only of making the house. But suddenly there has been a land subsidence, so you have to immediately strengthen it, build a concrete drain or a concrete wall which will work as a shear wall for the timing. So will you again go for a contract, for a tendering process? Because since it was a lump sum contract, there is no chance of changing the design or nothing. But an emergency situation has arisen. It is an urgent situation and has to be addressed in between those lump sum contract. So there, for those urgent work, we go for item rate contract. We do not have to do the calculation of the total work. We just fix the item, find the bidder, fix the bidder immediately, and then ask him to keep on doing the work, and then pay him for individual work that he is working. Okay. So this is schedule contract or item rate contract. So here in the schedule contract, estimated quantities are surveyed by the architect on the engineer. So the contractor, he does the work, and then the engineer or the architect surveys or measures the quantity of work that was estimated. And then if he feels that there is a Jameen Asman ka fark, that what was estimated and he has executed the pipe like what I have shown in my room in such a scale beyond the estimated quantity, then there is a problem. The problem is there it will be considered as a breach of contract, or some action has to be taken. What action? Let's discuss in the next chapter. But this is a entity that there is some activity of the architect even after the work is done. Next point is contractors enter unit price against the estimated quantity of work. So in this kind of contract document, we give the specification and we give the quantity, and two columns are left vacant. The first column is generally filled by the contractor. He does a survey while before signing this agreement. So in the letter of intent only, we say that on this particular date your tender has been accepted, so on a particular day you are supposed to come and sign a contract, which is this kind of contract, and he knows the estimated cost. So he comes prepared, the contractor comes prepared with the information to sign that particular kind of contract. So now if he has to sign this scheduled or item based contract, he will come with this PWD handbook where the individual rates are already given. So he will put those rates in the third column and the total cost will be calculated accordingly. Okay. This is also required. This is also useful on projects where the nature of the work is well defined. You know what to do, but the quantity of work cannot be accurately determined in advance of construction. For example, you are supposed to build a dam. So once you start building a dam and start arresting water, a lot of other things will come up. You will know the load, you will know the strength of the lock gate, you will know the number of lock gates that you have to provide, you will know that what should be the capacity of the irrigation canals from the dams and all. So during the construction, you will get lot of small alterations, which alterations could not be accommodated in a lump sum contract. So we go for this item rate contract. The quantities are getting fixed, the rate is being put by the contractor, and it is getting executed. So since the contractor only enters the unit price for individual product, this schedule contract is not only known as an item based contract, but also known as a unit price contract. Okay. So I will end today. In the next class, we will start with the advantages and disadvantages of this kind of contracts.